Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to PBA at Noon. I'm Paul Benwell, and I'm joined by my colleague, Sophie Caesar. Today, we have with us Essex Minerals. They are an exploration and development company focused on mineral exploration and development opportunities where it can adopt an option earn-in and joint venture model without the issuance of vendor shares. They have a great team, and with us today is the president and CEO, Paul Loudon. So presenting today from tomorrow, because he's in Australia, he's in Queensland, so he actually is tomorrow. It's very early in the morning. So be patient with him and ask him lots of questions, and we'll see how he does. Thanks for joining us today, Paul. Much appreciated. You can start whenever you wish.
That's my pleasure. Thanks very much, sir. Sorry, just computer's a bit slow, yeah. Thanks very much anyway for Paul and Sophie for organising this event. And I don't know why my computer has just frozen. It was working perfectly all day. Just a moment.
Oh, we can see there.
Perfect. Okay. Now, sorry about that. It was just frozen there for a moment. So sorry about that. So first of all, I want to thank everyone's logged in, and again, apologies for the technical delay there to the start. So the title here sums up the key takeaway I hope that you get from today's presentation, which that Essex is a ground floor entry into a new mining and investment finance company. So for most people here, I expect this is the first time you've heard our story. And so who are we? Essex was a shell that we took control of last year. We restructured it, we refinanced it, and now we've put it on a path that we hope will see us grow from today's very small startup market cap and share price to something many multiples of this over the years ahead. So we're different from other juniors in that we're rather than concentrating on one major project or commodity, we're going to leverage off management's deep experience in the corporate finance sector here and take a portfolio approach. And that means we're going to back a number of exploration teams we've known and backed previously over the years across a portfolio of projects. And this portfolio approach, we believe, mitigates risk for investors as we're not relying on just one project to succeed. And in order to fund the exploration investments, at the same time, we're making cash generative investments in streams and royalties, which, as we grow, will be the future source of cash to fund future growth of the company. So in the first year, we've made 3 investments. KNX, which we're now acquiring 100% of, which gives us a fantastic portfolio of advanced gold projects in Australia. Secondly, we formed a financing joint venture with a private streaming company, which is going to give us a pipeline of streaming opportunities. And thirdly, we sponsored the creation of Optegra Capital, which is a specialist streaming company in the renewable space. We've got about $2 million of cash on hand, and as I said, very modest market cap, 7.5 million. So really is the ground floor here. Quick snapshot of the share structure. Management holds about 25% of the stock here, and unusually about 45% of the shares outstanding is held by institutions who've come in at the early stages here to back us because we've known them for many years, and they believe in the strategy that we're about to execute. Management team, we all have a background in mine finance or running mining companies over many years. And we know that commodity cycles go up and they go down. And that unless you're extremely lucky, you don't want to be in the position where you have all your eggs in one basket. So hence the investment strategy that we've adopted. So our investment strategy is about getting the best bang for our buck while protecting the downside. So in the first instance, we keep in contact with a network of exploration teams that we know around the world. And those teams are constantly putting together exploration projects which need funding. So at the exploration stage, we're looking for drill-ready or near drill-ready projects in Tier 1 locations. And at the development stage, we're looking for opportunities where we can make investments for streams and royalties, which will give us near-term cash flow. So step one is really a screening process where we look at and assess a lot of projects and only choose those ones which we think are going to give us the best chance of success. Step two, when we select an investment, we like to stage our entry. So in the case of exploration projects, this means that our preference is for an option agreement where we can earn an initial interest by spending cash in the ground rather than having to issue vendor shares. And in the case of streams or royalties, we want to be part of a debt stack where we can share the risk with a senior lender and the equity investors. And then step three, that's determined by the results we get. So if we like what we see, we increase our investment, or we can acquire the project like we've just done with KNX Resources. Then we can joint venture it or spin it out as a separate listing. Or if we don't like the results from the first round of investment, we can sell or abandon the project without having blown out the share capital. So the benefit to shareholders of this approach is that over time, it increases our chances of success and eliminates a sort of binary outcome that many juniors have, which is where they're relying on one project, and not every project succeeds, as we know in this sector. So our first investment in the year that we've been working on this was a portfolio of projects in Australia put together by an exploration team that we've known for many years in a private company called KNX Resources. And this investment typifies the approach that we're taking in the portfolio. So we started with an initial $1 million investment in the ground to earn 50% of their 3 projects. And they've got 3 big projects. A big epithermal gold project in North Queensland called Cumberland, and a nearby gold and copper gold moly project called Mount Turner. And in the Northern Territory, a large orogenic gold project called Compass Creek. So the results from the first round of investment gave us sufficient encouragement to continue, and we now just we completed a second round of funding with them, and then now we're just completing acquisition of the whole company. So investment to date's been about $3 million. We've just finished drilling at Mount Turner, and over the next 12 months, we'll assess our options to either joint venture those projects out to a bigger company or keep the portfolio together and spin it out as a separate listing, either in Canada or on the Australian market. In either case, we'll keep a royalty and the right to provide development finance for the project. What attracted us to Queensland, what attracted us to KNX was the Queensland properties. Queensland's a region which has produced a large number of gold discoveries, but remains relatively underexplored compared with other regions of Australia, like Western Australia. So the targets here are large epithermal gold projects. Cumberland and Mount Turner are here inland from Townsville in North Queensland. Historically, there were a series of small high-grade mines in the 1800s, and then only limited modern exploration, some small-scale mining of gold in the 1980s and the early 1990s. And then, despite being prospective for gold and copper, this ground was then sterilized essentially for gold and copper exploration for the next 20 years because it was tied up for uranium exploration, mainly by mega uranium. And then as mega started to drop the ground the ground they didn't want 7 or 8 years ago, the KNX guys started to pick it up and progressively staked the ground that was being dropped and then put it together as a pretty interesting gold project by the time we came into it. So of these projects, the one we'll have a quick look at is this Mount Turner project here. Mount Turner is a large ground holding with two big exploration targets. First of all, there's gold along this Drummer Fault in the northern part of the tenement. So we're looking here for reasonably high grade epithermal gold in a shear system, and it's all related to what we believe is a buried copper gold moly porphyry complex here about 1.5 kilometers to the south of the Drummer Fault. So they're the two targets. An immediate target here for gold underneath these shallow pits that were mined in the 80s. That we've just drilled on the eastern end here, and then the big prize here is this potential for a big copper gold moly porphyry complex, which has never had any drilling into it apart from a few reconnaissance holes by the Bureau of Mineral Resources in the 70s and the 80s. And then one hole by Kidston Gold Mines here in the 1980s, which was drilled off in this direction to the northeast, which is away from the mains, what we now believe is the main zone of potential mineralization. Kidston didn't have aeromag like this at the time, and they hadn't completed a soil grid over the top of it like we're completing right now. So between the Drummer Fault complex and the big buried porphyry, there's a lot of potential excitement on this property, and for that very reason is the reason that we've acquired KNX. A second investment was an investment, a stream finance joint venture with Zola Minerals, private streaming company. And this joint venture gives Essex the right to an 80% interest in any of Zola's streams by arranging the finance for the investment. And that finance will come largely from lines of credit that we have in place with a couple of metal funds in the US. So we're targeting near cash flow streams in the $10 to $20 million range in precious metals, copper and battery materials. And we have some term sheets on the table right now for gold and silver streams, as well as a production finance facility term sheet on the table for a vanadium project, which is a battery material which we think has got a pretty big future ahead of it. All the talks about lithium at the moment, but when it comes to big grid scale batteries, we think vanadium is going to be a pretty important commodity. Streaming the reason we like streaming, Canadians understand the streaming space. We won't be a pure streaming company, but we look to benefit from the superior cash returns that streams can generate. And these will be core investments for the company and the way that we generate cash to fund our exploration investment strategy in the long term, rather than having to do share placements all the time. Now, our third investment that we've done in our first year is a company we sponsored called Optegra Capital. Optegra is going to be a first mover in applying that same metal streaming model to the renewable energy space, and in particular in the biomass engineering, so biodiesel or waste to energy, or dairy digester for RNG. We were quite a way down the track just before the summer with a large financing to spin Optegra out, but when the market pulled back a bit, that change in market conditions has just forced us to slow down the timetable on that. And we'll now that everyone's back after the summer, we'll get back into it, and we hope to get this financed and spun out as a separate company within the next 12 months. So what's the news flow that's going to hopefully catalyze some movement in the share price in our company? News flow moving forward here over the fall and the winter. Firstly, we've got drill results coming in from the drilling that we've just done on the Drummer Fault there in the Mount Turner project. We also expect to have some pretty interesting preliminary results from the work we're doing on the big copper gold Molly porphyry there. So, you know, we should be some good exploration results coming out over the next 2 to 3 months. Secondly, we hope to secure our first stage earning on a potentially very large project in the battery metal space that we've been working on for quite some time. So hopefully that comes together. And then we'd hope that one of the term sheets that we have down for streaming investment will crystallize and we can announce our first streaming investment, which will be a transformational moment for the company, really. And then the first half of next year, we'll assess the results from the KNX properties and decide if we want to spin it out or joint venture it. And finally, we want to complete the spin out of Optegra as our green energy streaming company. There's quite a lot going on. That's the Essex story. We've got lots of experience and an ability to execute on these strategies. We have a very disciplined approach to what we're trying to do. And we've made some pretty interesting investments already with more to come. So, and really it's only just begun. So that's why I say this is a chance to gain a ground floor entry into a new mining and investment company. And at 15 cents and a market cap of 7.5 million, it really is all upside from here, we would hope. So I'm very happy now to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, thank you very much. So we do have quite a few questions, and I invite everyone else to also ask them in the Q&A while we're going through them. So who are some of your largest shareholders?
Apart from the management team, the biggest shareholders after that would be Dundee Goodman and Dynamic Precious Metals and Crescat Capital. So they're our big institutional shareholders. Okay.
And maybe you could touch a little bit on the cash position, and are you going to be needing any money moving forward?
Yeah, we will be needing money. We have 2 million.
Okay.
That 2 million is after we've funded the drilling program, which has just been completed now, and that's enough for the balance of the exploration programs that we want to run this year on the existing portfolio, and gives us cash to execute on another investment that we're working on right now, and in terms of the royalty investments, which are the other big investments we're working on, we would look to draw down on our lines of credit rather than doing equity raise to fund those investments.
Okay, and you mentioned possible spin-outs. Where do you think you would list those spin-outs? Would you list them here in Canada or in Australia?
We'd assess that at the time. I mean, if we're spinning KNX out as an Australian project, it may make sense to spin that onto the Australian market. Mm-hmm. Alternatively, all of my career and history has been on the Canadian or the London market, so I was very happy to do it in Canada. But certainly Optegra is going to be a listed company in Canada. Optegra will be a Canadian listed renewable streaming company in the renewable space.
Okay. Your exploration properties are located in Australia. Are there, and you're listed in Canada, will you investigate opportunities outside of Australia?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So
you're not limited to Australia. You're open to opportunities anywhere.
No, so yeah, I'm here. Normally, I'm actually based in Europe, but for COVID reasons, I'm down here to be near some elderly parents I have. But the rest of our team is in Vancouver, And we're assessing projects right now in South America, in South Africa, and in Australia.
So you brought up COVID. How is that factored into your project at the moment? Are you seeing, is it slowing things down? Has it been a barrier?
It's been a challenge, but we've been quite fortunate that it hasn't slowed us down too much. Queensland and Western Australia, which are the two states in Australia in which we are most active, are currently open and free to move around in. It's difficult if you want to move people interstate, and right now, half of Australia is in hard lockdown. So, but all of that's going to sort itself out by the end of this year, once everything's vaccinated, and government here has got to start opening things up soon, and they've announced a plan for opening it up. We were quite fortunate that it didn't impact our drilling teams at all, and for the moment, the assay labs in North Queensland are operating at full speed. So last year they were slow, but this year.
Well, that was going to be one of my next questions. Is there a backlog? Because I know that we are experiencing a backlog here in North America. Are you experiencing the same backlog, or they're back up and running?
Yeah, there is a backup, but it's nowhere near as bad as it was last year. So we're getting 4 to 5 week turnaround on assays. Last year it was a nightmare. It was 8 to 12 weeks.
Yeah, we've heard that quite a bit. You had some exciting drill results last summer at one of your projects. Could you tell us a little bit more about what happened there?
Yeah, well, it was the first project that we joint ventured in on the very first drill hole that we put into it. A blind program that had never had a drill hole in it before. The very first hole pulled 6 meters at 18 grams a ton and 100 grams of silver. 18 grams of gold, 100 grams of silver, and the market went a bit crazy, thinking that every hole was going to be like that. Unfortunately, exploration doesn't work that way. So the market got ahead of itself, and the stock, we had hardly any stock on issue, so it just got bought off to crazy levels and then came crashing back down again as the results came in, which we were pleased with the results, but they in no way met the expectations that the market had built up for themselves. So, to me, that just illustrates why you have to have a portfolio approach to this and a considered approach over time. That was a project, a Cumberland project that had never had a drill hole in it before. Still looks a pretty interesting project, but it's complex. One of these multiple phased intrusives. The Mount Turner project that we're drilling this year we would have drilled it first, but we were waiting on permitting to come down. So and really that was the Mount Turner project was the one that attracted us to get involved with their portfolio in the first place, and the Cumberland project was really 5 reconnaissance holes to begin with. But now we've got a pretty interesting gold project. Wow.
So you've actually managed to keep the outstanding shares low. How have you done that?
We have, well, for a start, COVID has one positive effect of COVID for all junior companies is that overheads are much lower than they ever were before. We're just very careful with the way we manage our money. Our money is shareholders' money, and we're shareholders. It's our money as well, and we're not in this to get rich off salaries. We're in this to increase the stock price. So most of the money that we spend in this company is going in the ground one way or another.
Okay, fantastic. That's actually some of the best companies have that philosophy. You also have an arrangement with the Metals Fund. What's the structure to that, and how are they compensated?
So if we find let's say we want to do a $20 million stream investment. We borrow the money from them, so we borrow the money at a coupon, and then they have a right. They could turn some of that into stock in the company at higher levels if they wanted to. But essentially, we're taking it as a term loan, and we'll borrow it at 10%, and we look to invest it and with an internal rate of return in the high 20s. Okay. So we make money on their money. And then we'll pay that debt back, but we get the benefit of the cash flow in the meantime.
Yes. I have one more question before I hand it off to Paul. Do any of your projects have, well, I guess it's a two-part question. So, what do they have, infrastructure, or are there any indigenous issues, or is it specific per project?
Well, on the Australian projects, there's no Indigenous issues at all. There's native title agreements are in place for a long time, and it's pastoral land in any event. And infrastructure-wise, yeah, we're 10 kilometres from a town called Georgetown. There's a sealed road runs right through the project area. There's grid power. So yeah, it's infrastructure-wise very good. On those, and they would be part of our selection criteria. I mean, we literally have looked and been involved in maybe 20 odd processes or more over the last 12 months looking at other projects. And what we bring to the table is that all of us have been in the mine corporate finance sector for a long time as analysts or financiers. So we're looking at we look at those issues.
Yeah, excellent. Paul, did you have a question? Paul Benwell, did you have a question or two?
Yeah, just a couple. What's the permitting process down there? I mean, do you have any problems getting permits? Are you up to speed on all your permits? Like you're good to go, or?
Yeah, it's a bit. Queensland Queensland and Western Australia are great states. They're big mining states. So their permitting system is much quicker than say Victoria, down where Kirkland Lake is, which is, again, it's historically a good mining place. But in Australia, permitting is done at the provincial level, and that's why we like Queensland, Western Australia, because they're big mining states, and that's what drives their economy, and so the permitting is very smooth. We can make an application for the Mount Turner ground. We applied in November, and unfortunately it took until end of December to be fully permitted to go on the ground. So it took 2 months, but by that stage we had an early wet season, so we couldn't get the drill rig in there.
Gotcha. Well, one last question. You're working on a lot of projects, or, like you're always searching for new projects, but where's your short-term focus? It's on the property where you're waiting with the drill results. Are you going to look at those results and go back and drill there again, or are you just going to?
Sure. Well, short-term focus is certainly we're waiting on those results, and we're completing the acquisition of KNX. So it's 100% owned by us, which means that we then have the flexibility. So we're in discussions with a number of parties then who are interested in, bigger companies who are interested in joint venturing in those projects. We're also in discussions with potential financiers here and in Canada and in spinning it off. So, dealing with KNX and maximizing the value from those results that are coming in is a primary focus for the company at the moment. And the other primary focus is to get a stream investment in place. They would be the two high priority targets. Exactly.
All right, Paul, thank you so much for your time today. This is a very interesting story. You've got a lot of irons in the fire, so development will be the key to moving forward. Thanks to everyone for showing up today. Much appreciated as always. And we'll be following Essex for the next few months, and you'll be updated on all the press releases and what's going on. Again, thank you, Paul. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Sophie.
Thank you.